It happened in 37 minutes, 37 minutes that cracked the spine of my entire marriage before it even began. And the worst part? I smiled through my wedding vows the very next day, pretending I hadn't done the one thing I swore I'd never do. The lights at the club were too dim, the music too loud, and the tequila too cheap, but none of that excuses what I did. His name was Tyler. He was not my fiancé. He wasn't even from our city. Just a bachelor from Toronto with tattoos and sad eyes who told me I looked like trouble, and I wanted to be. One dance turned into a dare. One dare into a drink. One drink into a room upstairs. I told myself it was just a fantasy, a last fling before forever. But fantasies leave scars, and this one carved itself deep into my chest. The next morning, I stood before the man I loved in a white dress with shaking hands, lips still tasting like sin. And he kissed me like I was pure. Like I was his. Before I tell you what happened after the wedding, make sure you're alone, because this secret was never meant to be heard. The night started with glitter. Glitter on my cheeks, glitter in my hair, glitter on the sash my friends made me wear that said bride-to-be in rhinestones so big they practically screamed. We were in Vegas. Cliché, I know. But after 2 years of planning a wedding, I wanted cliché. I wanted loud and messy and forgettable. I just didn't expect to be the one everyone would try to forget. My best friend, Marissa, handed me my third shot before we even made it past the velvet ropes. Tonight, you're not engaged, she said, grinning. Tonight, you're wild. I laughed like it was a joke, but something in me cracked. Maybe it was the pressure. The anxiety. The fear that I wasn't enough for the man waiting for me back home. Or maybe I just wanted to know what it felt like to be reckless, just once. The club pulsed with bodies and lights. I remember the exact moment I saw him, Tyler. He was leaning against the bar, drink in hand, eyes locked on me like he already knew the ending. He had that lazy confidence, that smirk men wear when they've already won. I should have turned away. I should have clung to the ring on my finger like it meant something. But instead, I walked toward him. Congratulations, he said, nodding at my sash. Or, condolences. I laughed, too loud. Ask me tomorrow. We danced. God, did we dance? He didn't ask questions. Didn't care about my life outside those walls. And for some reason, that made me want him more. With Daniel, my fiancé, everything was planned. Structured. Safe. But Tyler was chaos, and I let him pull me under like a riptide I didn't fight. By the time we made it to the hotel elevator, my lipstick was smeared, and I could barely stand straight. But I was clear-headed enough to know what I was doing. I just didn't care. He kissed me like he'd waited years. Like I was something rare. And maybe for that one night, I believed I was. I told myself it wouldn't go far. Just a kiss. A thrill. But when his hands found the zipper of my dress, I didn't stop him. I let him undress me, let him touch skin that wasn't his to touch, let myself forget about Daniel altogether. 37 minutes. That's how long it lasted. How long I became someone else. Someone I barely recognized. Afterward, I stared at the ceiling, heart racing, stomach twisting in ways that had nothing to do with alcohol. Tyler asked if I wanted to stay. I told him I had to leave. He didn't ask why. Just gave me a smile, lazy and sad, like he already knew he was just a moment I'd pretend never happened. Back at the hotel room with my friends, I lied. Told them I needed air. Told them I went for a walk. No one questioned me. No one knew. Except me. I washed myself clean that night. Over and over. Scrubbed my skin until it burned, like maybe the guilt would wash away too. But it clung to me. It still does. The next morning, I slipped into my dress. White lace, floor length, custom fit. I looked in the mirror and wondered who I was now. A bride. A liar. A cheater. A coward. My mother cried when she saw me. Said I looked like an angel. Daniel's mother kissed my cheek and whispered, "Welcome to the family." Daniel? He looked at me like I was his whole world. Like he would die before he ever hurt me. And me? I smiled. I said the vows. I kissed him. I told myself it would be the last lie. But it wasn't. They say marriage is about honesty. But from day one, mine was built on a lie. And not the kind that fades quietly into the background. This lie had weight. Texture. Teeth. It sat between us in bed every night, pressed against my chest like a second heartbeat. Daniel didn't notice, of course. He was too busy being perfect. He cooked on Sundays, folded my laundry the way I liked it, left love notes on the bathroom mirror. He even adopted this ridiculous habit of calling me Mrs. Holt in a British accent, just to make me laugh. I used to adore him for it. But now, every sweet gesture felt like a punishment I didn't deserve. The worst part? I never told him. Not because I didn't want to. But because I knew that once the words left my mouth, I wouldn't get him back. I cheated, Daniel. On the night before our wedding. With a stranger. I tried rehearsing it. In the car, in the shower, in the middle of the night when guilt kept me awake. But I could never finish the sentence. I always ended up crying into my pillow, praying he'd never find out. Months passed. Seasons changed. We bought a house. Got a dog. Started talking about kids. And still, I kept that night locked in a box buried deep inside me. A rotting secret growing mold in the dark. One night, while watching a movie, Daniel paused the screen and looked at me, really looked. "You've been distant lately," he said. "Is everything okay?" My heart stalled. I almost told him. Almost threw the truth at his feet just to see what he'd do with it. But instead, I nodded. "I'm just tired." He kissed my forehead and unpaused the movie. But the thing about secrets is they don't stay buried. They infect everything. My mood swung like a pendulum. One moment I was clinging to him like a lifeline, the next I was snapping over how he loaded the dishwasher. I couldn't touch him without feeling like a fraud. Couldn't say I love you without choking on the aftertaste. Then one afternoon, I saw him at the bookstore. Tyler. The same Tyler. Same tattoos, same eyes. He didn't see me, but I saw him. And just like that, the past clawed its way back up my throat. I ran. Like a coward. Locked myself in the bathroom and dry heaved over the sink. That night, I told Daniel I had a migraine. Crawled into bed early and cried silently into the sheets. The guilt turned into anger. Not at him, at myself. But also at him. Because he was too perfect. Too trusting. Too kind. I resented him for not seeing through me. For loving someone who didn't deserve it. One night, I asked him if he believed people could change. He looked confused. "Yeah," he said. "I think love changes people." "Why?" I shrugged. No reason. But deep down, I was begging him to notice the cracks. It wasn't fair. I wanted him to know, but I couldn't bear him knowing. I wanted to suffer, but not lose him. And that's when I realized the worst part of what I did wasn't the cheating. It was the pretending. The years I let him pour himself into a version of me that no longer existed. The woman he married was a lie. And I never had the courage to introduce him to the real one. Guilt doesn't whisper, it screams. It curls around your ribs and tightens every time he laughs, every time he kisses you like you're clean. And eventually, it grows a voice that sounds a lot like your own. Mine started talking the week of our 3rd anniversary. Daniel had planned a trip to Aspen, cabin in the snow, private hot tub, firewood stacked like he built the damn place himself. It was too perfect. Too pristine. And the entire time, I felt like blood was seeping through invisible cracks in the wood. We were lying in bed, snow falling outside the window, when he reached over and touched my stomach. "Do you think it's time?" he asked softly. I didn't need him to explain. He meant a baby. A family. The next chapter. I smiled. Nodded. Lied. Again. But something broke after that night. Maybe because the stakes had gotten higher. Maybe because I couldn't imagine bringing a child into a love built on dishonesty. Or maybe because guilt had finally started to rot me from the inside out. I started having dreams. Nightmares. I'd see Daniel's face melt into Tyler's. I'd wake up with my heart in my throat, hands shaking. Once, I whispered Tyler's name in my sleep. Daniel didn't mention it the next morning, but he brewed stronger coffee. The guilt started slipping out in strange ways. I left my phone unlocked more often, hoping, no, daring, Daniel to look. I started fights over nothing. I brought up the past, looking for a reason to confess. One night, I finally cracked. We were eating pasta. I had a glass of wine in me, maybe 2. Daniel was telling me about his coworker's affair. Some scandal at the office. I interrupted him. "Do you think you'd ever forgive me, if I made a mistake?" He blinked. Fork froze in midair. "What kind of mistake?" I stared at him. Hard. Willing him to see me. A bad one. A big one. Like if I wasn't who you thought I was. Daniel set the fork down. "Are you trying to tell me something?" My throat closed. The voice of guilt screamed, asterisk now. "Tell him now, asterisk." But I chickened out. "No," I whispered. "Just curious." He nodded slowly, but the warmth in his eyes dimmed a little. I felt it. That night, he didn't kiss me goodnight. I thought I wanted to be caught. But the truth? I was terrified of the fallout. What if he left? What if he stayed but never touched me again? What if he looked at me like I was something dirty? The next morning, I searched for Tyler online. I don't know why. I wasn't trying to rekindle anything. Maybe I just wanted to punish myself. To stare into the face of the man who cracked me open. His Instagram popped up. A picture of him with a woman. Pregnant. Smiling. Something inside me snapped. I slammed the laptop shut and ran to the bathroom. I sobbed. Ugly, heaving sobs that racked my chest. Because suddenly, I realized. Tyler moved on. Found peace. And I was still stuck. In a lie. In a loop. In a marriage built on sand. Guilt has a voice. And once it starts speaking, you can't silence it. Not with time. Not with love. Not even with a baby. It was a Thursday. Just a normal Thursday. Rain tapping the windows, coffee still bitter from the morning pot. I'd spent the whole day rehearsing. Again. I was going to tell him. Finally. Not in some grand dramatic scene, but quietly, honestly. I imagined sitting across from him at the kitchen table, eyes locked, no makeup to hide behind. I even wrote it down, every word. But I didn't get the chance. Daniel came home early. He walked through the door soaked and breathless, like he'd run through the storm, and I knew instantly something was wrong. "I need to talk to you," he said. I braced myself. Thought, *, this is it. He knows. He found out, *. But then he knelt down. Pulled out an envelope from his coat pocket. "I got the results," he said, voice shaking. "The tests. From the doctor." My stomach dropped. "What tests?" His eyes went glassy. "The fertility tests. I didn't tell you because I didn't want to scare you. But I've been getting headaches. And they found something." I sat. Cold. Frozen. He swallowed hard. "They think it's a tumor. In my pituitary gland. Non-cancerous, probably. But it's affecting my hormone levels. That's why we haven't gotten pregnant." I couldn't breathe. Couldn't move. All I could think was, * he's the one hurting. And I've been here, drowning in my own lies, *. I broke. Right there in the kitchen. I cried so hard I thought I'd choke. He pulled me into his arms, rubbing my back. "It's going to be okay," he whispered. "We're going to get through this." I almost told him right then. Almost unzipped my ribcage and spilled everything. But when someone is carrying the weight of their own mortality, how do you hand them your sins too? So I didn't. And that night, he held me while I shook in the dark, and I hated myself more than I ever have. But here's the twist. The next morning, he made pancakes. Smiled at me like the storm didn't matter. He said, "I don't care if we ever have kids. You're enough. You've always been enough." And that's when it hit me, he wasn't perfect. He was just good. So good. And I'd betrayed him in a way he might never recover from. So now I live with it. Every morning, I kiss him goodbye knowing he'd give me everything, and I gave him a lie. Every anniversary, I pretend we're celebrating something whole, when deep down I know it's fractured. And every time he talks about the future, I think about the past. Will I ever tell him? Maybe one day. When I'm brave enough. But until then, I'll keep loving him the best way I know how. With honesty in every area except the one that matters most. Because sometimes, the truth doesn't set you free. Sometimes, it's a prison. And I built mine out of silence.